I'm Suzanne Zeedyk, and I'm an academic and researcher who looks at parent-child interaction. And I got here to be here today because a couple of years ago I did some work on buggies, which becomes really interesting what in society we often haven't thought about buggies in terms of interaction. And indeed, I didn't know, until really recently that Graco was making use of some of that in thinking about their new product design. So I'm really delighted to be here today to discover more about what Graco is thinking and start to think about how do we bring together this information with children's product design. I want to just demonstrate that babies come into the world already connected to other people. They arrive already as social beings. That's the psychology. The neuroscience that's been really climbing out of labs in the last 20 years at most is now telling us that that sense of connection that they have with other people shapes their brain development. And once we get our head around those two things, then we suddenly begin to realize that that sense of connection matters for buggy design as well. This desire to be close to parents that Graco is trying to incorporate into buggy design is because babies feel safe when they're near their parents. Evolutionarily, they get scared if they're very far away from them. So part of what we have to help them to do as parents is to come to be able to cope with this thing that's scary and hard, which is being further and further apart from us. But if we ask them to do it too soon, it makes them really scared of the world. When you're walking down the street with your baby, they can feel the rhythm of your walk. That's also why when you do this, evolutionarily, that helps a baby to go to sleep. It's really interesting that we transfer that without thinking about it to buggies. So you have a baby in a buggy who's probably facing it away for lots of parents. The baby gets fractious and you do this, right? I watch it. I'm now obsessed with buggies, right? I spend the whole time watching. I watch on the street. Parents do this. But it's really different for a baby in a buggy where they can't see or connect with their parent going like this as opposed to a baby on a hip. And it's not something we've ever thought. We're doing what evolution tells us. It's just interesting when our baby is no longer on our hip and is in a buggy because, of course, evolutionarily, we didn't have buggies. We carry babies on our bodies. Something interesting in the history of human evolution is happening with buggies because babies are now transported not on parents' bodies. We now know that brains grow after birth. Okay? That's why health visitors measure the circumference of a head, because brains are supposed to be growing. But they grow particularly fast in the first 3 years after birth. They're never going to grow as rapidly again as they do in those first 3 years. So these are college-educated mothers. This is in the States. So that's university-educated mothers. This is working-class parents, and this is what they called welfare parents. And they measured the amount that parents talk to their children, and then they measured children's vocabulary levels. And what this shows is that by the time they're 16 months old, younger than your wee one, already we're starting to see differences in the language development of these children. And by the time they were 6 years old, ready to start school in the States, the vocabulary levels of the children of university-level parents, the children's vocabularies were bigger than the vocabularies of the parents in this group. So when we did our buggy research, which I really haven't talked to any of the details about this morning, the National Literacy Trust got interested in buggies because teachers were asking whether the decline that we're seeing in vocabulary levels in some areas of the UK might have been influenced by buggy design because parents can't talk to their wee ones so easily. So it's very interesting to start to think buggies could be influencing vocabulary levels of children. What is happening to our children's brains while we get them from point A to point B? That's often what we think buggies are. It's about transporting them. And what I'm trying to say is, it's about a whole lot more than transporting them. And if we can get our heads around that question safely, we have a chance of making sure that our babies are in the safest, most supported world that they can possibly be in, which is the kind of world that most parents and most buggy manufacturers, I believe, want to make for babies.